Now, the prospect of growing fruit and vegetables at home can be quite daunting, especially if you haven't got a garden or if you've never grown anything before. But in this episode, we're going to show you 3 easy to grow vegetables that you can pretty much grow anywhere. And by growing your own, you're going to improve your garden, you're going to improve your diet, and you're also going to help improve the environment just a little bit. So let's have a look at vegetable number 1, salad. Now, why do I want to grow salad when I can go to the supermarket and grab it out of a bag? Firstly, number 1, you've got to grab it out of a bag for a start, and you've got to go to the supermarket. There's no air miles on this. There's no traveling down to the supermarket. You can pretty much grow this anywhere. You don't need to be blessed with a big plot. Most salads will grow happily in a window box, in a small container, and you can pretty much pick and graze on the go. There are a whole host of different salad leaves to go for, some more exotic than others, and some more colourful than others here. So I've got some Lolo Rosso here, burgundy red, next to our conventional greens. But over here, if I want a little bit more pepper and spice, you've got your rocket. Some of this has already gone to flower, but it's still good to graze. And obviously you can buy it from a supermarket. And it comes in a bag and it might have been sweating and sat on the sides on a sunny day. Whereas this guy, planted in a sunny spot, this will flourish and it will also add flavour as well. Rocket wants to taste like it's rocket fueled, and this has a real peppery twang at the end of it. You can grow this in a window box, you can grow it in a humble pot. Good growing medium as with anything. So whether you're growing plants, fruit or veg, it's essential that you get the benefits of the soil right. Happy humus means happy plants. Revert back to our earlier video on soil if you want a bit more information on that. But once these are placed out in a sunny spot, these will grow throughout the summer months and you're good to go and graze as you choose. I weeded this 2 days ago, look. It's essential if you have got your big borders and beds, and you keep the weeds down, they can get quite happy in and amongst the beds. You don't want those on your plate. Look at that, that's the squirrels, bloody squirrels. So, when to sow, how to grow, and when to graze. Generally speaking, around the end of March, early April is a great time to start sowing out your seeds. Firstly, we need to prepare our growing medium. So I would normally use something like a bit of compost with some horticultural grit, that's that kind of fine stone, maybe a little bit of soil in there for some added nutrients as well. Now, if you live in colder climates, I would always advocate that you start off indoors or in a greenhouse. If you don't have a greenhouse, a conservatory in a sunny spot is a great way in order to start your seeds off on their journey. You sow your seeds into the growing medium by creating a very small trench. You can use your fingers or you can use the back of a trowel. It only needs to be around about 1.5 to 2 centimeters deep. Create the furrow and then sow them thinly. And what I mean by that is just to pinch the seeds and drop them in rows, and make sure you rows around about 20 centimeters apart if you're doing them outside. If you're doing them indoors and you're starting them off in trays, then they can afford to be a slightly closer together. Once they've started to spring into life, you'll see those very soft, delicate leaves start peering magically out the soil. Once they start to get around about 5 to 6 centimeters in height and the temperature starts improving, then you can move them outside into larger pots or into beds and borders if you've got them. How are they going to grow? Well, they grow like the clappers in the sun. Try and make sure that you position your salad leaves in full sunlight if you can, and water routinely, especially during those drier periods. And when is it good to graze? Well, the going gets good as soon as you can start seeing that big bounty of leaves. This is when it's fair game, and this is when it's time to pick and serve at your discretion. Number 2, tomatoes. You say tomato, I say tomato too, because I'm not American. Tomatoes. Now, these are probably one of the easiest and most rewarding things that you can grow at home, because you can grow them, as I have been doing, in a pot. My children are currently having a competition to see who can grow the most potatoes and the most tomatoes. Now, this is my daughter's, and you can already see this is festooned with flowers, which is a great sign, because out of those flowers are going to appear those beautiful ripe red tomatoes. Now, we've got a few of the greenies starting to make an appearance here, and in about, I'd say about 2 weeks time, the whole plant here, and this is just one plant grown from seed, is going to be covered and laden with tomatoes. With tomatoes, as with most of the vegetables that we're going to be looking at today, there are a whole raft of different varieties to go for. Some will be slightly more demanding than others, but most, if you're growing from seed, will always be very, very clear on the back in terms of when you can sow them, how to grow them, and when the going gets good. And then all the way throughout to the very end of the summer. Now, the one thing to remember with tomatoes is they love food. So if they are in a pot, you're gonna have to invest in something like a soluble tomato feed, high energy. I think about things like your nitrogen, your phosphates. Check the back of your packs if you're going to buy it from a garden centre or a DIY shed. But you want to get the best food possible for your tomatoes, because the more they feed, the more they take the energy on board, and all that energy goes into the flower, and then eventually that flower is going to turn into that delicious tomato. When to sow? Well, I would start sowing at the end of spring, because these guys, once they get going, they're going to grow hard and fast, but they want the warmth and they want that sunlight, just like us. And in terms of sowing these, invest in a growing tray. But if you don't want to invest in a growing tray, maybe you've got some old Tupperware in the kitchen that you want to reuse. Or if you've got an old milk carton, just cut it in half, plastic milk carton, and use what you can in order to create a growing tray. Now, you fill your growing tray up, this time exclusively with compost. Now, there are particular composts which are geared up towards tomatoes, or you can actually grow them in tomato bags, and you can easily buy those from a garden centre. But if you're going to fill your tray up, make sure it's packed tightly with the compost, and you're going to dip your finger in, and you're going to plant a single seed in each one of these trays, no more than 1 centimetre down, and then cover over. A good spritz of water first, so it's going into a nice moist environment, and then position these indoors or in a greenhouse in a nice sunny spot. But within 2 weeks, you're going to start seeing that juvenile plant appear, and that's when you're going to transplant from one of these into one of these. And again, we're doing our bit for the environment here, because we are going to use and reuse. So keep hold of your pots, because you never know when you might be able to reuse them. You can just stack them up into a quiet corner of the garden. Make sure this is full of compost again. Put that juvenile plant in, and again, it's going to start absorbing all of that moisture, all of the nutrients from the growing medium, and it's going to start growing. And this time I'm going to say between about 20 to 30 centimeters. That's when you can put it out into a much larger pot and then position it in a really sunny spot. Now, if you're growing in your beds and borders, keep them well fed and keep them well watered. The easiest way to lose your crop of tomatoes is to forget to water these. A couple of hot days of the sun beating down on them, they're going to start wilting. You might be able to revive them with a good watering, but chances are that's going to have an effect on the amount of flour and the amount of food they're going to put out for you. Well, when's it good to graze? Well, the going gets good when you start seeing all those wonderful red tomatoes appearing amongst that green foliage. Add them to your salads, add them to your burgers, take them on your lunch break, but it's free food at home without any air miles. Now, there's one more thing I forgot to mention actually, because can you see how this guy here is flopping over like he's been on the sauce, the tomato sauce? That's dreadful. Wasn't even a joke. But he is flopping all over there. And you want to keep them erect. I got it in again. A few bamboo canes and a small bit of garden twine just to keep them in an upright position will make sure that they're not going to drop over, get damaged, and get too wilty and laden with fruit. Onions. You either love them or you don't love them. Well, onions are an absolute doddle to grow, and you can grow them from seed. But in the case of onions, you can also grow them from onion sets, which are like little mini onions. They're already on their way. Oh my gosh, that's lingering. An onion is a bulb, and that bulb essentially is housing all the nutrients it needs to grow into a much bigger plant. So by putting your sets out, you're almost halfway on the journey to be able to start harvesting a fully fledged onion. But from seed, it's a similar story as our previous processes. Firstly, it's all about preparing the groundworks. If you're planting into the garden, make sure they're packed full of nutrients, make sure they're well drained, and you can afford to be a little less liberal with the sunshine when it comes to onions, because they will cope in a slightly shadier area, but they still do like a good dose of sunlight throughout the day. Again, it's all back to basics. It's getting the groundworks right. So happy hummus, as we've said, and if you're growing from seed, you start off either in a growing tray or in a small bed you need some depth. So something like a window box would be absolutely perfect. Old buckets again, but you're gonna be limited to what you can get. You do need a good width, because as you can see here, they soon start putting out a lot of sprout, and they do need to have a good amount of space in between each plant. So when you sow your seeds out, again, you're gonna create a furrow around about 2 centimeters deep, spread those seeds out 20 to 25 centimeters apart, and then after about 2 weeks, they're gonna just put out some fledgling growth. And that's when you want to make sure that the plants are spaced out regularly, because you don't want them starting to contend for space underground, because underground is where all those minerals are going to start going into that bulb, and that's what we want to eat. So the bigger space they have, the more they can capitalize on grabbing that goodness. The tastier, the bigger, the heartier they're going to be when you come to pick them. So when's it good to graze? Well, the going gets good from the tail end of summer, end of July, start of August, all the way through into September. You'll be plucking and picking, but it doesn't matter if you don't want to eat your onions there and then, like I just did. Don't be rushed into throwing those into the pot or into a stew. If you want to keep them, keep your onions clean and dry, and put them in a darker, cooler, dry cupboard, not a wardrobe, as I once did, and it stunk the whole bedroom out. And they can last for months on end. So if you do want to keep them through the winter months for that piping hot stew, they will do then. Just help them on their way. And hopefully today's video has helped you on your way in order to sow, grow, and most importantly, graze your own incredible edibles. But we're not stopping there, because there's plenty more to grow at. You see what I did there? There are plenty more veg and fruit to go at. And in our next episode, we'll be looking at 3 incredible edibles, all of which begin with C. There'll be courgettes, there'll be carrots, and there'll be another one, but what is it? Guesses below. Don't forget to like and share. And if you've got any questions, or if you've got a horticultural horror show going on at home and you need a few tips, don't forget you can always shout me out in the messages down below. That's the comments down below, I meant. And hang around to the end of the video and check the link at the end for further information